All right, in our study in the history of the New Testament church, we're going to start going through the 9th and 10th centuries here, and it's still a dark time with all these things that are going on. Last week we had spoken about Charlemagne and Pope Leo and the beginning of the Holy Roman Empire, and we're going to learn a few more things about that and how the Church of Rome used this to, again, greatly solidify their power, both in the ecclesiastical and in the temporal realms with this, and now we're able to utilize the authority that they have in the temporal realm by being able to take advantage of the kings and other nobles to use their armies to persecute Christians. All right. Now, Charlemagne's dynasty was known as the Carolingian dynasty, and it lasted up to 987. Again, he was crowned in 800. And it goes to 987 when the Pope at that time replaces that dynasty with a fellow by the name of Hugh Capet and puts him on the throne. So that's the end of Charlemagne's ancestor being the head of the Holy Roman Empire. Now this time frame, if we think of it in terms of the book of the Revelation of Jesus Christ, chapters 2 and 3, where it gives us the ages through the church history. This is Thyatira, is the time frame here that we are looking at. Roughly runs 500 to 1000 AD. And during this time frame, again, if you go back and read through that, you'll see this is a time frame where the church departs so far from the faith once delivered to the saints that it's completely unrecognizable anymore. Outside of, again, those who have stayed faithful to the Word of God, and those who, because of that and all the they have been facing this persecution, since 33 AD. And it hasn't let up. It's gotten worse. And again, the true church, though, does continue on in spite of everything that we see happening with the Church of Rome. Okay. Some of the names that are given to congregations of true church believers, real Christians, by the Church of Rome throughout this time frame in different regions throughout the world are going to be Arnolists, Albigenses, Begards, Beguins, Bogomiles, Cathari, Donatists, Fratericellis, Henriessens, Hussites, Lollards, Manicheans, Messalenes, Novatians, Palacians, Petrobrusians, Picards, Catarines, and Waldenses. Most of these, the names that they're given are given to a particular leader that's prominent among the church at that time and position. But see, again, the Church of Rome does this with these groups because they're trying to completely sever them from what they're doing, which is rewriting church history. Okay? They are, and we're going to find that as we get in here a little bit further in the study, that they go to the extent that they literally start rewriting history to support their claim that they're the true church going all the way back to Peter. Okay, and so in order to make these groups look like heretical sects that are just, jumping up over here and over there and so forth, and you know, they call them by a lot of times names that refer to their leaders, like Arnold, or you know, who's the other one I'm thinking of here, Waldo, and of course Apostle Paul. Most of these here, that's how they're named, Lollard, and so on. Now, thing is, some of these groups do have some doctrinal issues. Okay? No question about it when you really start looking into them. But not one of the things, but all these groups are going to have these things, though, in common with them. Number one, salvation is by grace through faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, not by works. They all consider baptism a pictorial ordinance that has no saving grace attached to it, and it is only for confessing adults. They will not baptize a baby. All right? They absolutely refuse to be connected to or to be reconciled in any way to the Church of Rome, recognizing it for what it is, okay, the workings of Antichrist, the Church of Satan. They only will utilize the received texts. They want nothing to do with the Bibles, so to speak, fake Bibles, that have been put out by the Church of Rome. Their stuff being based off of the Sinaiticus and the Vaticanus, both of which are you know, in the case of the Sinaiticus is a fake, the Vaticanus is corrupt. They only using received texts. In a lot of cases, as we mentioned last week, these have already been translated into their local languages. Okay? They have all been named heretics by the Church of Rome, and therefore they are condemned as enemies by both, or as enemies to the Church of Rome and the state, in this case being the Holy Roman Empire. So, this being the case, their meetings are considered illegal assemblies, and so if they were to do so in public, they're subject to persecution by both the church and the state. Okay? Now, the persecutions at this time cover quite a wide range, depending upon when, where, and to what extent the so-called authorities want to carry forth this persecution. I mean, at the very least, they're going to face public censorship and lose their ability to buy or to sell openly. Sounds like the Antichrist, right? Can't buy or sell without the mark of the beast. All right. They can be fined, and they can be fined through monetary means. They can be fined by the seizure of property. They can be fined by having their personal freedoms impinged upon. There can be confiscations of land, of property, of goods for being a heretic. There can be forced removals, you know, and typically when this occurs, whether it's we're going to kick you out of town or we're going to kick this whole group out of, okay, they make sure you ain't coming back because they burn down your property. Pretty much they leave you destitute. There can be public punishments such as being put in the stocks, dunkings, public beatings, these types of things. You can be put into prison for being a heretic. I mean, you know, what am I trying to think of here? John Bunyan, you know, the Baptist preacher responsible for, it's tough when the brain goes, what am I trying to think of here? John Bunyan's book. Pilgrim's Progress. Oh, it's tough getting old. Anyway, you know, he was jailed for years and years and years. over that because he was a Baptist, one of the persecuted, condemned, heretical groups. And this is in England by the Church of England when this is happening. You're going to find, when we get into the time frame of the Protestant Reformation, okay, the Protestants were just as busy persecuting true Christians who had never been a part of the Church of Rome as they were the Church of Rome. And in some cases, they were persecuting each other. So they never got, the great whore entirely out of their blood in this. You can be tortured. I mean, for no other reason than just to torture you, not to get information out of you. I mean, typically they're doing it trying to force you to recant your position. In that, you can be sold into slavery. You can lose your right to be a human being and can be sold into slavery. And of course, then they certainly could and did in the millions murder you for being a Bible-believing Christian. Now, prior to the end of the Carolingian imperial dynasty, in order to solidify their stranglehold on power, okay, again, remember Pope Leo we talked about last week when you had Charlemagne was in Rome and for their Christ Mass celebration, and he's there praying in the basilica, and Pope Leo comes in and puts a crown on his head and proclaims that he has been crowned by God. And Pope Leo's talking about himself. I am God on earth. All right, which means that Charlemagne is subservient to him. He makes him the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, and he is the god of that empire. So they decide to do a little more behind the scenes intrigue and work, and they start a pattern that we're going to see as we go through history now. They come up with a bunch of spurious documents and texts and so forth that have been collectively known as the Pseudo Isidorian Cretals. Let me write that out there for you. Dorian, and this wonderful word here. Pseudo-Isidorian Cretals. All right, pseudo, okay, English dictionary, just simply means spurious, not genuine or a sham. Isidore Mercator is the individual that they're referring to, the Isidore Mercator of Seville, Spain. He's a complete fake individual, never existed. Isidore the merchant. And a decretal is a papal decree concerning a point of canon or doctrine. Okay, so basically these have collectively come to be known as basically sham documents collected by Isidore that are supposed to be these decrees made by the Pope. Now the funny thing is, even though everybody knows that they're fake, because that's the name they go by, okay? Church of Rome holds to them. I mean, they carry more authority than this, right here. And of course, again, what we're going to be talking about here is anti-church history. This isn't church history. This is anti-church history. So I'm going to go through it as briefly as possible, but we need to understand what they did with these, why they created them, and what they did it for. Sometime after the death of Charlemagne, he dies in 814, but somewhere before the middle of the century, 850, you get hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of fake documents are being drawn up in France. They're primarily ecclesiastical documents. Some of them are secular, but they are being created with the intent to give an overwhelming, document trail to support the all-powerful position and authority of the popes. All right, so they're literally going to start rewriting history. They're making all these forged, fake documents that they're going to hold up and say, here's the proof of our authority and power. Now, these were attributed to three sources, primary sources, and they're all spurious. I mentioned Isidore Mercator. Okay, he's supposed to be the individual who has collected all these documents together. Okay, well, whoever this individual is, if he's even a real individual, is essentially the forger or one of the forgers. The story goes that this guy, was a wealthy merchant, in Seville, Spain, and he's been collecting all these things all along, and he turns them over to the church. You have an individual by the name of Benedictus Levita. Okay, no relation to the other Levitas, which basically means, Benedict the deacon. But he's supposed to be another collector of the documents. He's a completely spurious individual, never existing. All right. And then you have a fellow who is a real individual by the name of Antichurch Fontanelli. Now, he was a legitimate collector of historical documents. And so they use his name, he's dead and gone, but they use his name to lend legitimacy and authenticity to the forgeries. And he's not around to, refute it, but because he is a legitimate individual in this, they utilize him. So you've got one real individual who wasn't involved in it at all, who they're just stealing his name, and then you've got two fake individuals there that they are utilizing here. Now, in the first book of these, the Cretals, as they call them, it's divided into three parts. The first one contains documents on church canon and 60 faked decretals from Clement. Now remember our buddy Clement, okay, back 3rd, 4th century, the darling of the Church of Rome and everything. Now he was never a pope, so how is he coming up with, papal decret? He's not, okay? But, because he was such a loved, well-known name, I mean, the thing is, Clement himself was a faker of things. You've got an item out there called the Epistle of Clement, which is completely spurious and bogus besides on that. And he takes that and adds it into the Sinaiticus. This is Clement, okay? So this is one of the books that you would find in the Apocrypha, in some cases. So, they're taking a faker and they're faking stuff from the faker in all of this. The second part of that book contains a forged document, very important document called the Donation of Constantine. Okay, so here, Constantine, dies in the 4th century. And here we are now in the 9th century. So he's been gone a little while, all right? This document alleges that Constantine willed the entire Roman Empire, all of its lands, all its holdings, all its wealth, and all its authority to guess who? The Pope in the Roman Catholic Church. So, there you go. Hey, see, Constantine, gave us this document here, so, I mean, whoever we choose to make the emperor, they're underneath us. Because the emperor, and technically the first pope, if you will, Constantine, here they got this fake document. Third part of that book contains more decretals from various popes, and the bulk of which of those are all faked. Now, all these faked decrees that they have out there from these so-called popes, which again, they're trying to develop a document trail that's supposed to lead from the Apostle Peter up to this time frame, and have this unbroken line succession of authority and power up here. So all of these fake decrees, decretals, all support an absolute theocracy, okay, as Pope Leo had intimated to in 800 AD when he crowned Charlemagne. Now, a theocracy is a government system in which a priesthood rules representing God, okay? The nation of Israel, okay, was supposed to be a theocracy, okay? That's why Samuel was so upset when the people were saying, make us a king, make us a king. And God told Samuel, don't be upset, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting me. And he gave them a man after their own heart, which was Saul. Okay, he ended up rejecting Saul, and he made a king that was after his own heart, who was David. Okay, but David ruled under God. Okay, that is a theocracy. Well, the Church of Rome has stolen the idea of the Levitical priesthood and tried to pattern their ecclesiastical leadership after that. And there's zero ground for that in the New Testament whatsoever. Every born-again believer is a priest. Not, how they have things set up. Thing is, every pope, from Pope Leo in 800 AD right down to today, to Francis the Talking Mule, holds to and confesses that very position. Okay. Now, this papal government, okay, and that is why the Vatican is considered a city-state with the Pope as its political leader, its ecclesiastical leader, and why governments send representatives there. Now, this is the setup of it. This huge pyramid, if you will, on that. And the very bottom of all of this are what they call the laity. Okay, that's the Laodicean time frame. It's the people. Okay, and this is exactly how it's referred to in official church doctrine and documents. I know, because I was raised a Catholic, okay, that the laity is made up of carnal sinners. Okay? So you are the absolute bottom of the heap of humanity. Next up in line there will come, you start getting into your ecclesiastical leadership, the priests. The priests, on the other hand, though, are spiritual. Okay? And the priest's position is to be the pastors of the laity. Now, among the priest class, you have, beginning at the bottom, your parish priests. Over several parishes will be, you know, the different terms they use for them. The most common one is the Monsignor, or the head father, or the head priest. Groups underneath that, you're going to have the bishop, okay? Then you will have, usually they have the whole world cut into different sectors, if you will, and that sector is run by like we have the Archbishop of the United States of America. There'll be an Archbishop of this area, an Archbishop of that area. From among there you have the cardinals. Okay, the cardinals are essentially, you know, the core that is around the Pope, and it's from the cardinals that the popes will come, and then you have the Pope at the very top of that. Now that's going to change a little bit when we get into the time frame of the Reformation, because you're going to have come out of there, because of Loyola Ignatius, what's called the Black Pope and the White Pope. The White Pope is the one that you see publicly. The Black Pope is the head of the Jesuit order. Guess what they've got right now sitting there in the Vatican? The guy that's sitting in the Vatican is both right now. Okay, he came from, was the head of the Jesuit order. And I remember my parish priest was a Jesuit. So they control absolutely all religious and secular life for every single Catholic worldwide. Let's see, do we have one out? Yeah. If you've never actually read that little tract here from Chick Tracts, Jack Chick, Are Catholics Christians? Read this. There's going to bring out a lot of important things here, but you know, when you are confirmed as an adult into the Church of Rome, you know, and you go through the process and you go there and kiss the ring of the bishop, you know, and he slaps you in the face. It's supposed to be you're suffering for Christ, and all, but you are swearing loyalty to the Pope and the Church of Rome above every other loyalty and association that you have. That includes the nation in which you live, that includes your family, that includes your spouse. Okay? If you are a Roman Catholic, it doesn't matter where you live in the world, you are a citizen and subject of the Vatican State. And that citizenship is supposed to take precedent over your national citizenship. Worth reading. Worth reading. That's why Church of Rome hated Jack Chick so much. All right, so this is where we're at here with the Church of Rome as we come down to the end of the 10th century now. They have their own Bible. They have all these fake documents that, you know, give them, you know, this unbroken chain of authority from Peter up to this point in time. They are in full control of the empire. There, all the leaders within the empire, if they expect to get anywhere in life, have got to yield to the authority of the emperor. and that emperor has to yield to the authority of the Pope. They have now become the most powerful government in the known world at this time. Okay, the Church of Rome, is the basis, the type, the pattern for what we're going to have happen during the tribulation time frame. And just as it is today, so it will be in that tribulation time frame, is that the kings hate the Pope. They don't like being under that. They're actually going to rebel against and destroy the great whore. Again, read in the book of the Revelation there about the 10 kings and the Antichrist. Again, because the Antichrist, okay, just like how Napoleon did it,